Here is one of a series of talks by spiritual leader Lola McDowell Lee, spanning 2 decades from the early 70s through the 90s. Lola was a Zen Roshi, whose Rinzai lineage included Dr. Henry Platov and renowned Zen master Shigetsu Sasaki. Lola was a religious scholar as well as an ordained Christian minister. While the talks are focused mainly on Zen and Buddhism, Lola drew on many spiritual traditions, including those of Jesus, Plato, Lao Tzu, the Hindu Vedas, Meister Eckhart, and Gurdjieff.
"30 spokes." Sound true, huh? 30 spokes unite in one nave, and on that which is non-existent, which is on the hole in the nave, depends the wheel's utility. Clay is molded into a vessel, and on that which is non-existent, on its hollowness, depends the vessel's utility. By cutting out doors and windows, we build a house, and on that which is non-existent, on the empty space within, depends the house's utility. Therefore, existence renders actual, but non-existence renders useful. That's clear? Well, now and then we think about life, and it's too bad I can't mention the little bumper sticker I saw, but I can't.
Wait, you could.
Huh?
There's a switch on that thing at the top.
Oh, even at that I can't.
Well,
But we think about life. You know, its ups and its downs. And then coming here by, then we're told a few things about it now and then. And that there is such a thing as the thing in itself, the life, the thing in itself, rather than just my life, So then we try to, what this life looks like, we try to picture in our heads. What is this that we call life? What I'm supposed to see it. What is this thing? You do that, don't you? Huh? Try to make a picture of it. What is this thing? Life. Well, picture it, of course you can't, but you do have a feel of it. Now and then. A feel of life. A kind of a sense of it. It's kind of through this sense of it, this feel of it, we can see then that what they're talking about when they say life flows. This feeling, this sensing it. And we read stuff in books, and it says that life flows, and life flows like a river. Life flows like a river. And so we relate this flowingness to this, the movement of life going up and down, movement that we're in day after day. Then we have this feeling of life flowing. Sometimes there's this smooth flowing, and sometimes it goes dashing up against the rocks, and sometimes it's flowing over the rocks, and so we have what are called rapids, and sometimes it just seems to flow into a kind of a pool, and it gets very deep and just in this one area, almost to a point of stagnation. Our life is like this, huh? This is, this existence is like this. We flow with this river. We move with this river. And of course, all rivers run to the sea. They all flow to the sea. Are you flowing to the sea? What we do not seem to comprehend, amongst other things, I guess, we don't seem to see that this flow, this ebbing and this rising, as it were, is called the law of opposites. The dashing against the rocks, or the smooth flowing, or the rapids, or the sudden deep pool, The law of opposites moves from one thing to another, one state to another. Here in our ordinary world, in our superficial way of looking at things, our way of viewing, the expansions and again the contractions, the effects thereof are pretty visible. One day you're feeling great, and one day you're feeling miserable, and one day you're happy, and the next day you're angry, and all kinds of things coming and going. And we feel them, we're involved with them, and this is all somewhat visible to us, this rising of this, and then it falls away, and then something rises and falls away, and something else rises and falls away. Now, but the collaboration of this flow itself, underneath all of this, see, this that is in the depths, that which is actually working, you see, that's not seen. For instance, now, in India, they study and they often read. I mean, if a little kid is going to go to a guru, which is, they teach him to read and to write also, And what they study then is the Mahabharata. And this part of it is the epic poem that is called the Ramayana. And the Ramayana, together with the Bhagavad Gita, these two poems make this book, the Mahabharata. And the term Mahabharata means the Great War. So it's the longest poem in the world, and it is of tremendous antiquity. There are people in this world who believe that Homer's Iliad was based on the Mahabharata, and there's others that say just the opposite, that the Mahabharata was based on Homer's Iliad. Who are we to say which one of them? But old. And in this poem of the Ramayana, and the allies of Ramayana, who are the monkeys, led by one Hanuman. And also they had some monster birds, and they have a lot of animals in the thing, but monkeys mainly. And the whole army now is led by this Hanuman. And they are all in this fight against the Rakshasas. And the Rakshasas are the demons of Sri Lanka. Now, Ramachandra, who is the hero, he's our hero in this poem, he's married to a woman named Sita. And Sita is the female avatar, she is called, of Lakshmi. And Lakshmi is Vishnu's wife in the triad, the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. That particular. So Vishnu had a wife, and her name was Sita. And this Sita is the incarnation then of Lakshmi, really. And Rama is the incarnation of Vishnu. So, in other words, Vishnu on this level, so-called, is married to Lakshmi, just as in the unseen levels. And as for Lakshmi, there are in India many, many, many shrines to this goddess. There are shrines to this goddess wherever there are the Hindu people. In Trinidad, we were there, becoming acquainted with some of the people there. They were Hindus. And there was one taxi driver that took us to his house so that we could see his shrine. One room of the house is set aside, and this is what they all did there. One room of the house is set aside, and it was made into a shrine. And here in this little shrine is this statue of Lakshmi. And in the Orient, in Japan, and I don't know about China, I didn't see anything in Hong Kong. But people in China, they have little shrines and like that, and they have in this shrine Kuan, or as they call her in China, Kuan Yin. And Kuan Yin is depicted as a female, and women pray to him for children. And they pray to him for safety. And they pray for whatever women pray for. They pray to Kuan. And the statue of her stands in front of Choyenji. And I think practically in every other temple in Japan. And Kuan is called he, because in the beginning it was, now I can't say it this morning, Avalokiteshvara. Yeah. The one with the many hands. Now, Rinzai at one time gave a sermon about Manjushri. Now, this is the great god of wisdom. And the people at that time were going all over looking for this god of wisdom. And this Rinzai is saying, he's giving this talk, and he says, there are some student monks who look for Manjushri at the Wu Tai Shrine. Now, in China, there was at that time, I know there was like a mountain, and on this mountain was this shrine built for, Manjushri. And he says that many monks are making pilgrimages there, seeking Manjushri. And he says, but they have already taken the wrong road. There is no Manjushri at Wu Tai Shan. Do you wish to know where he is? There is something at this very moment at work in you. It shows no tendency to waver. There's something at work in you. It betrays no disposition to doubt. There's something working in you. And this is your living Manjushri. Not in the shrine. Yeah. The light of non-discrimination which flashes through every thought of yours. This is your universal sage. This remains true all the time. Every thought of yours knows of itself. Every thought of yours knows of itself how to break off the bondage. It is emancipated in every moment. So when someone says to you, and this is not Rinzai, someone says to you, observe, what is it that you are really observing? Do you observe every thought of yours and see that through that you can be free? Can you see that even though you're thinking and judging somebody, that in that very thing itself there is a non-discrimination? It flashes through the thing. Any moment, when you can see that, you can be free. Why are you running to Wu Tai Shan? Yeah. And he says, this is entering into the samadhi of Avalokiteshvara. Really, to really so observe yourself. It's a lot of hard work once you get through playing. Anyway, in this poem, the Ramayana, Sita is carried away by the demon king. And this, of course, leads to this very famous war. The Bhagavad Gita, as you know, is the war of Arjuna. He is there and looking at the soldiers all straight, here's one side and here's the other side, and he looks at them and he says, how can I fight? There's my friends on this side, there's my family on this side, blah, 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 and they turn around and here's my friends on this side, here's my family on this side. They're on both sides. How can I fight? Which side would I choose? I can't find him. And Krishna, is in the chariot there with them, and he tells them, fight! You are of that particular caste. You do what you must do. And so then it does, the book then through this war, it tells you the 4 yoga systems. Yeah. Now, the Ramayana, the war of Rama. And he fights these Rakshasas, which name means raw eaters. And they are supposedly giants, these demons. And by some they are considered, in the Bible it talks about giants that are there. The remnants of the Atlanteans, leftovers from Atlanta are there, and they're giants. They were giant people. So now these are the raw eaters. And anyway, Hanuman, who is the king of the monkeys, he is the general of Rama's army. And this Hanuman is the son of Vayu. And Vayu is the god of the wind, or the god of the breath, or the voice, as it were. which is, they mention that in the Upanishads. So now the breath, or the voice, is the faithful ally of Rama, the great creator, Vishnu. And together with Sita or Lakshmi, you see, Shiva, the destroyer, together we have creation, because unless something is destroyed, nothing new can come about. So here we have these opposites in there. But anyway, this Hanuman, he's the audacity of him, this temerity, and his wit and his humor, he conquers. So today in southern India, the monkeys are still very revered. The rest of India, it's the cows, but in southern India, it's the monkeys. And maybe someday I could bring it down. I have a record of the monkey chants that they do to Hanuman, for Hanuman. Okay. It sounds like monkeys when they're chanting. Anyway, all that's all kind of a side issue, because that was a for instance now. Now, if you were to remove Ravana, that is the enemy, the great giant, demon king, if you removed him from this story, what would become of Rama? There would have been no great war, so there would have, of course, been no poem. Monkeys might have all been eliminated, but why should you revere them? I mean, there'd been no Hanuman to know about. So we look at something like that and we begin to see that it's this challenge, you see. It's the opposition to his enemy, to Ravana, that brings out this resilience and audacity and temperance of Rama's character. And it reveals, the brilliance that he develops in his personality. Ravana and Rama, they grow with each other's support. See? Superficially, they're enemies. In what we call actuality, they're enemies. But in existence, it's the use of each other to grow. See? In the depths of light, they're partners. So it is this struggle, you see. And people say, why do we have to struggle so in life? Why, God made this world, and it should be nice and pleasant and really nice. And here it is, all nothing but a struggle. We struggle to grow up, and when we're growing, we think everything's going to be nice when we grow up. I'm going to be 25, I'm going to be 21 or 25 or 30, and from there on out, it's going to be, I have reached a maturity, and I have reached the age of reason, and now I can reason, and I'm just as dumb as I was before. See, so the whole thing is just this struggle to keep a roof on your head, over your head, and clothes on your body, and food on your table, and not only that, it's a struggle to keep your health. So you just don't lie down and die. It's this struggle. That's where it comes along. I heard this little thing, and I'm quite taken with it. The work ethic in this country, has subsided somewhat. Considerable. Yeah. And so there was this person on the TV, and he said, personally, I don't like work. We were in this discussion, he says, but it is through work that I find myself. It is in the struggle. It is in the challenge. You may go to work and do the same thing all day long. I mean, if you work in Detroit and you put nuts on a wheel, why, that's what you do. But you've got a lot of time to think while you're doing it. And in that, maybe aggravation, who knows what goes through these minds, rather than letting the work ethic go, to really do the best you can and watching yourself all the time. In this work, in this struggle, the whole thing can become a challenge. And you will find something. Not only will you find something, but that very challenge of doing it will bring about something in you to help the character become Laziness never did it. You know, in this seeming opposites, you know, in this struggle, you see, against, you see, there are partners. You become partners with something. You're collaborating with something, but in yourself. Don't put it out there. It's in yourself. And know, too, that this has to develop. Can't struggle one day and then say, well, I did it. Am I any better? Oh, yeah, now I got character. No, it's on and on and on and on and on and on. Boringly on and on and on. And that's what develops. Something develops out of that. So, you know, we find ourselves tied to both, friend and foe. It's very difficult to accept the opposite. Let's say someone here is very angry with me. Let's say we're outside and, oh, they are so angry they take off a shoe and they hurl it at me, you know. You can be angry in turn, and the whole thing is a mishmash then, huh? Yeah. Or you can stand aside and say, well, I wonder why he's so concerned about me to take such trouble. I mean, the concern is there. If he didn't care, he wouldn't throw the shoe, or rock, or whatever. Huh? There is a caring of some kind. And so I should become aware of the trouble he is taking for me. See? And if I do that, then other things will just pass me by, and I don't have to be involved, but just with this particular caring. What we do generally is that we look at one side and we forget the other. It's like we pick a rose and we are so entranced with its fragrance and its aroma and its beauty, and all of a sudden, what have we got? Our finger's bleeding. It's got a thorn. This, you know, and now we've forgotten the flower altogether. Now we're concentrated on the thorn. We do this all the time, and this is one of the great misfortunes of man. Our vision is partial. Now, partial vision, we can't say, as they would say if you were going to church, that it's a sin. You know, it's not really wrong. It's just that it's not complete. We only see one half of the picture. And the other half is so contradictory that we can't relate one to the other. So this doesn't fit, you see. Machiavelli, you know, he wrote this book called The Prince, and he writes in it, he says, the greater the intimacy, the more cautious you should be of your friend. The thicker the friendship, the more vigilant you should be. If you do not want your enemies to know the facts, take care that your friends do not know them either. That was this guy and how he thought things should operate. So we know by now, too, that life changes at every moment. You know, it's Petula Clark sang a little song, round every corner. You know. Life swings from one extreme to the other extreme. In the depths, you know, it's one life. And on the surface, boomty, but it's a bumpy road to Oz, isn't it? Yeah. One place we have all the movement, and in another place, all in quotation marks, because they're really all together. We have what Eliot called a still point. And that's where the dancing is, that has no movement to and no movement from. It's just a very still point. Yeah. Now, if we begin to look for that still point, that depth, you know, we begin to see a little more what we're like, a little more what we do, and we might even find something else. But if you're just going to sit on the surface and go bumping along, I don't know how you would ever begin to understand Lao Tzu. Of course, if you read them in Chinese, you won't understand them either. Oh well. 30 spokes of the wheel combine at the center. And the usefulness of the wheel depends on that empty space, that still point at the center. Everything moves but that. Around that which does not move. Now, there's a saying around and about, if you meet the Buddha on the way, kill him. Now, this is started in the Orient with some Roshis. And then the psychologists here picked him up. Because what they're talking about, of course, is your own images, your imaging. If you have an image of the Buddha in your head, get rid of it. If you have an image of Jesus in your head, get rid of it. The image is not the thing in itself, not the person. But however, if you meet a real Buddha on the road, study him. Kill the image and study the real one. Now, a Buddha, you know, he walks with a begging bowl, so-called, and appears to have absolutely nothing, so that all around him is empty. He has no wealth. He has no status in this world. He has no palaces. He has no jewelry, no glory, no nothing. Now, as far as Shakyamuni, Buddha is concerned, at one time he had all of that. And he had all of that, and he felt empty. There was nothing in the world out there that he could not have had just for the asking. All of it he could have had, just for asking for it. His revolving wheel was full. And he felt, what's the use of all this outside fullness if he felt so poor within? So he went to the forest and became a beggar. Or at least this is what the legend says. It's how the legend goes. I do not recommend that you do this. And now, after spending years and years and going through all kinds of experiments in the forest and becoming this beggar, now you meet him. The outside is empty, where before it was full. Now the outside is empty, and before where the inside was empty, this is now full. It reversed itself. People who write books and articles and so on, and they say a lot of stuff that they don't know what they're talking about. They say that you cannot accumulate wealth and remain empty or become empty. I cannot say that anybody who is making money, they're sharp enough to gather some wealth, that he still can't find the way home within himself. So I always say you do both. Be comfortable while you're struggling. And there have been people all over this world who struggled to have great wealth and finally had it, and they turn around and give it. They give it away. I mean, Gerald Hurd gave the Trabuco Canyon Monastery to the Vedanta Society, and it's a very, very lovely place. And the big self-realization facility on the coast over here, I don't remember who gave it to them, but it was given to them. And the list all, is really very long. And I guess how come we can sit here? First of all, Rosalind gave us the land, and then Rosalind and Ernie lent us the money to build the building, and we paid it back, some of it. Well, Ernie died and said the rest of the debt was canceled, so that was fine. So then Rosalind had to do the same thing too. And then there was a woman by the name of Alice Peake who left us some money, and by the time her doll collection was sold, it had more than quadrupled. So, and then, of course, Bill Suit says you give it to me, and the money that you had from Alice Peake, and I'll see to it that you will get some interest on it. He paid us 22% interest on the money. You see, and then Suits, added some more, and Melody a tremendous amount. So, you see, little by little. And it hasn't depleted anything from them, has it? No. Ruth, and Rosalind, and there was Henry Eklund, and Ernie, And this Ruth Sasaki, I'm given to understand that she was at one time a very wealthy woman. And she gave her wealth and her health to promote Zen. She built the little hermitage over there at Daitoku-ji, and she is so highly revered. You all know the story. They wanted to make her a Roshi, and she refused. She said she wouldn't teach. And they told her that if she wouldn't, why she'd have to leave. And all the monks, rose up and said, unheard of, if she leaves, we all leave. So wealth and God exist together. It's still the same old thing. When it comes to the final point, it depends on the person. I'm not here saying anything about giving money or anything. That was not my point at all. It is the person. I mean, they say that you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do the other thing. I'm not so sure. It depends on the person. Everything depends on the person. It depends on the person and the motivation they have for seeking. It depends on the person how hard they seek. I mean, it all boils down here. What do you like? What are you? What kind of character do you have? It doesn't, the money is beside that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't count. It is what you are doing with your life. Are you really the river flowing to the sea? You understand what I'm saying? Or trying to say? Yeah. Okay, a pot is formed of clay, but its usefulness is in its emptiness. They speak of empty mind. You know your mind is empty. If it were not for that, the first thought you ever had, you would still have, and that would be the only one. But they flow through. The same with your feelings. The first one you ever had, you don't even remember. They flow through. Let them flow through. They come and they're going to go. Let them flow. Don't say this is my thought or this is my feeling and this is the way I feel now and hang on to it. Let it flow through. When you buy a pot, you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy a pot. Do you buy it for the sake of the pot, or do you buy it for the emptiness inside? What are you buying? The actual pot is the space. What is visible to your eyes and what you're usually buying is the limit of that space. Yeah. It is its particular boundary. See? This right here. That's the boundary of the space within. If it were not for this, both the boundary and the space within, those flowers couldn't be there. If the whole thing were solid, you could put nothing in it. And if it didn't have any walls, it wouldn't hold any water or flowers. But do you go to the store to buy emptiness? And then we talk about a house. Well, we're all sitting here in this emptiness. The building consists of walls. Nobody sits in the walls. But the walls are what we call a house. It's the emptiness. The walls divide the outside from the inside. The walls, keep us warm or cool in here. If it's warm outside, we're a little cooler in here. Or if it's cold outside, we're a little warmer in here. The walls keep the outside out and keep the inside in. They're the boundaries. But the use of the house, see, the walls are the actual, but the use of the house, it's empty. If the house were full of something, you couldn't sit here. And when we talk about building something, when we were building this one, did we talk about emptiness? We're going to build an emptiness? A particular kind of an emptiness? Well, we design the doors and the windows, and we never give a thought to the empty. We're giving a shape to the void. Makes it precious, doesn't it? Any boundary. Now, when you meet a person, casually, what do you look at? The body? The walls? How about looking at the empty within? You people fall in love pretty much like they go to the market to buy a pot. They're attracted by the form. And of course later on why they have all these regrets, and they begin to talk about the foolishness of calling myself a fool. And I think it's in the it's Orthodox Christianity, Eastern Christianity, that they talk about calling yourself foolish has no points with God. Right on. A person is not significant because of his body alone. But I watched those skiers and those skaters at the Olympics, and man alive, the use that they can make of that body. All the discipline that they go through to make a use of. But it's a discipline that allows them. You see, it's in the struggle, it's in the work that I find myself. And they are then able to, by moving their bodies down that mountain, and shoom. I wish I could even do as good as little Eddie, the eagle. Yeah. This body is very necessary. And if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be here, right? You couldn't sit in the chair at all. But it is the empty that decides the excellence. In the parlance of, let us say, esoteric, it is in this empty in us there blooms a flower. And this is how the Rosicrucians, depict it. They call it the rosy cross. There is a cross in us, and in the center of which this rose is supposed to bloom. At this very still point, the rose blooms. So we're nailed to this cross within, and this flower blooms. It's the flower of love, rose. Now, this kind of a love that blooms from the still point is neither love nor hate as we usually know it. It is rather this very intrinsic essence, this great power that we call love. Do we usually take time and trouble kind of to see and to witness this in somebody else when we meet them? We meet a man sees somebody, and I've seen men do this with they may not say anything out loud, but you can just see it going through their heads. Wow, look at her, and then they proceed on from there, and I think, wow, yourself. Or a woman will say, look at him, oh, handsome. And with those words to ourselves, away we go. And it's kind of like there's a mechanical happening. It's like somebody pressed a button and turned on a fan, and boy, did you get lost. Huh? Fans work if you press a button. Yeah. Tagore wrote a poem about a monk. They call in India Buddha Bhikshu. Bhikshu is a monk. And this was an enlightened monk. And he was one day, he was with his begging bowl passing through one village after another, and he came to this particular village, and the village prostitute is standing on the terrace of her house. Now, this word prostitute, here and today in this age, this country in particular, I guess, is a very derogatory. People of different times and different cultures have had and do have different attitudes. Different words, for naming such a person, woman, man too, now in this day, I guess. In the Orient, as I've said before, they're called women of the willow world, who are trained in pillow talk. And in India, where this particular one lived, why they call her the daughter-in-law of the village. Well, and there are some psychologists I have read who say that wives and prostitutes are in the same boat. The only difference being that one has a short-term contract and the other has a long-term contract. Anyway, this daughter-in-law is standing on the terrace of her house, and she sees this monk, this bhikshu, and she sees somehow right away in him the integrity that he has, and all this that shows by this discipline, this beauty in him. And he has an entirely different kind of dignity than she's ever seen before. It's almost a majesty as he walks down the road. And it's not anything that he's doing, it's just because of the discipline that he has it, And just like that, she's in love. But she has seen these characteristics in him. And so she runs down from the terrace and she approaches him and asks him to be her guest for the night. And he declines, and he does it very nicely. And he says, "You're young, and you're beautiful, and your nights are not lonely." But he says, "I promise you that one day, when all your other lovers have discarded you, someday when there's no one to hear you at all, you will have a cry of sadness, and I will hear it, and I will come." She didn't seem to hear all of this stuff. It was just this tremendous blow to her pride and this great disappointment that she had. So 20 years later, here's this same bhikshu now, this monk, and he's walking down this very lonely road, and he hears someone groaning over there just on the edge of the field, on this little dirt road. And he walks over and he passes his hand over her face. You can't see her really. It is dark. And he asked her what ailed her, and she said, "Thirsty, need water." So he walked to the nearby village that he had just come through, and he brought back water for her and a lamp. And in this lighted lamp, he saw the face of this woman, this daughter of the village, the daughter-in-law who had spoken to him so many years ago. Now she was a leper, and she was thrown out by the village people, and no one wanted her. So he gave her the water. He had heard that cry, and he had returned. Somehow he had heard it, and he took care of her. And she kept saying, "It would have been better had you not come. Not now. What's the use? You should have stayed when I was young and when I was beautiful." Her head's still in the wrong place, huh? And he said to her to the effect, "But now you are more wise. You have seen more life. You have lived through things. You have experienced pain, and you have experienced frustrations. Your body now may be nothing, but you have some space in you." Yeah. There seems somehow at times something within us that seems almost contrary to this body. I mean, it's like we're struggling with something to make it go with the body, and it's always seeming wants to go in another direction. And yet this something is very united with this body. This something that is here that we can't seem to grasp, and it is elusive. We could call it empty, for lack of a better word. It's what we struggle with. In a way, it's what we struggle against because we don't know what it is. But it is with that we struggle. For the empty. The little thing that Lao Tzu says about the pot, that is being empty, is its usefulness. That pertains to man. To be an empty pot, is to be self-empty. Now, when things, are present, this is present, and this is present, and this is present, the things that we see and feel and touch, and hear, we call it actual. It's an empirical fact. This is hard. To me. So this, what you know about yourself, this mystery of yourself, make it actual. This empty. Make it actual. Make it as actual as this is actual. Okay? That's what you're supposed to be doing. We call that a chair, huh? Yeah. What is it if you do not call it a chair? What are they so excited about? I wonder. If you do not name something, do not label something, you take away a label and all of a sudden we don't seem to know anything. I mean, we're lost. What is that if it's not called a chair? What are you without a name? Without any name? The non-presence, we have a presence and a non-presence. The non-present is such a mystery. It just blocks our minds all the time. And yet it is that non-present that we use all the time. It is the useful. Now, I will say one thing. We would never be able to find the mystery of ourselves unless the mystery is in a container. We've got to be here. But let us say all of a sudden the container is not, well, if the container is not, the mystery is. Yeah. The actual, the container. And usually we see meaning only in this actual. So we say, okay, this is life. This is actual. What about death? Is there any meaning in it? Well, people say, it's simply an end. That's all it is, some people say. Some people say, well, it's an entry into a new life. We're going to have a new kind of life now. Well, supposing it's not an entry into a new life, that all it is just a sudden closing of some doors. We come into this that we call life, and little by little we open doors, open new vistas so we can see, what actuality is. We can see what this existence is. And when we leave, we close the doors. Big deal? No big deal.
If you find Lola's talks valuable, more will be posted in weeks to come.